Imagine for a second that you just hit the absolute pinnacle of your career. Like, you sold your startup for $10 million, or you finally made partner at your firm.
Right.
Or, you got that massive promotion you've been grinding toward for like a decade. The champagne has popped. But when you go home, your spouse barely makes eye contact with you.
Yeah, which happens a lot.
Exactly. And your doctor recently sat you down and casually mentioned you're a prime candidate for a stress-induced heart attack. And when you finally lie down at night, your brain is spinning so fast you can't sleep without medication.
Wow.
Yeah.
So are you successful? Today's deep dive into our source material argues, well, absolutely not. Your operating system essentially has a fatal bug.
It is the ultimate paradox of modern achievement. I mean, really,
Yeah.
we have culturally normalized this idea of sacrificing the foundation of a house just to build a taller roof.
Right.
And the source material we are unpacking today calls this out immediately. It suggests that any definition of success that costs you your biological health or your core relationships or just your baseline inner peace is fundamentally broken.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the material we are looking at is essentially a diagnostic manual for human flourishing. We are diving into a massive framework called the Human Operating System, specifically focusing on a section titled Part 6, Balance and Well-Being.
Which is part of an even broader concept, right?
Yeah, exactly. It comes from this broader concept called the architecture of awareness. And we've got a stack of notes, charts, and these really deep philosophical concepts from this text. The mission today is to figure out how to actually upgrade the software of our lives. So if you are listening to this on your commute or, while you're doing the dishes, the core question we want you to carry through this entire deep dive is this. Are you just passively living your life, or are you intentionally designing it?
What's fascinating here is how the text completely dismantles the old, fragmented way we view ourselves. I mean, for centuries, Western thought has really separated the mind from the body.
Totally.
We treat the brain like an elegant, sophisticated driver, and the body like a rental car. Just, a meat vehicle we drive around until the wheels inevitably fall off.
Right, like we don't even care about the dents.
Exactly. But this framework rejects that entirely. It treats the whole person as an interconnected, holistic system. So you are physical, intellectual, emotional, relational, creative, professional, and spiritual. Neglect one, and the entire architecture begins to buckle.
Which makes perfect sense when you think about it practically. Like, try being intensely creative or deeply empathetic to your partner when you haven't slept in 3 days.
Oh, good luck with that.
Right. You're running on sheer caffeine and panic. The physical hardware is just completely hijacked. So, before we can even talk about the high-level software, our thoughts, our career, our purpose, we have to start with the hardware.
We do.
The text introduces this as the biological performance engine. And I love the specific phrasing it uses. It says, the body is the biological interface through which awareness experiences reality.
Think about the gravity of that phrase for a second. Your eyes are literally the mechanism through which your awareness perceives light and color. Your nervous system is the wiring that translates physical touch into the experience of, like, warmth or pain.
Yeah.
Every profound thought you have, every split-second decision you make in a boardroom, every single ounce of patience you muster for your toddler, it is all mediated by the health of this biological interface.
I mean, if the brain is the computer processor, the body is the monitor, the keyboard, the cooling fan, and the power supply all rolled into one.
That's a great way to look at it.
And if the screen is cracked and the power cord is sparking, I don't care if you have the most brilliant software code ever written, the system is going to crash.
It's guaranteed to crash. And to prevent that crash, the Human Operating System identifies 5 non-negotiable pillars of physical health. It starts with nutrition, but it redefines it completely.
How so?
Well, the text argues that food is not just caloric fuel, it is molecular information.
Oh, wow. Information.
Right. When you consume something, you are literally giving instructions to your cells. So a highly processed, sugar-laden meal sends a biological signal that triggers inflammation and lethargy. But nutrient-dense food sends instructions for repair and energy production.
So it's basically asking, what code am I writing into my cells today?
Precisely.
And that feeds directly into the second pillar, which is movement. But again, the text pivots away from what we usually hear in the fitness space. It isn't preaching about doing extreme, punishing workouts until you vomit in a bucket.
Yeah, no, thankfully.
Right. It focuses heavily on lifelong capability. It's about functional strength and mobility. Like, can you comfortably get up off the floor? Can you carry your groceries? Can you maintain the physical independence required to serve your ultimate purpose when you are, say, 80 years old?
The framework views extreme performance as a localized peak,
Yeah.
whereas capability is a lifelong plateau that you want to maintain. And that brings us to the third pillar, which is where high achievers usually sabotage themselves.
No, let me guess. Recovery.
You got it, recovery. In our hyperproductive culture, we view sleep as a weakness. We view rest as simply, the absence of work.
Right. I'll sleep when I'm dead mentality.
Exactly. But the source material flips this, stating unequivocally that recovery is where adaptation actually occurs.
Because when you are lifting weights, you are actually tearing the muscle fibers. You aren't getting stronger in the gym, you are getting weaker. The strength comes later.
It comes during sleep. When your brain is in deep REM and slow-wave sleep, that is when the body clears out neurotoxins.
Wow.
That is when memory consolidation happens. That is when the endocrine system regulates your hormones. If you cut that short, you are interrupting the biological upgrade process. You are basically stopping the download at 60%.
Man, stopping the download at 60%. That hurts to hear. And the text includes two more pillars that rarely get mentioned in fitness discussions, which are prevention and environment.
Environment is really fascinating here.
It is. The text points out how our biology is reacting to our surroundings constantly, like the quality of the air you breathe, the amount of natural sunlight hitting your retina to set your circadian rhythm,
Yeah.
even the ergonomic setup of your desk. If you sit under fluorescent lights in a windowless room, hunched over a laptop, your biological interface is basically receiving signals of confinement and stress.
And prevention ties right into that. It's the proactive maintenance of the machine.
Yeah.
It's doing the blood work, checking the biomarkers, addressing that slight twinge in your knee before it becomes a fully torn meniscus.
Right. Preventative maintenance.
Exactly. And when you integrate all 5 of these pillars, nutrition, movement, recovery, environment, and prevention, you fuel what the text calls the biological operating cycle.
Let's walk through that cycle in detail, because this is where it stops being abstract and becomes like a daily mechanism.
Sure.
So it starts with nutrition, which provides the raw materials, and then that supports movement.
Right. And together, nutrition and movement generate the third stage, which is energy. And I want to pause here because energy is really the currency of this entire operating system. We don't just consume energy, we cultivate it.
We cultivate it, which leads to the fourth stage, performance. And notice that performance is downstream from energy.
It has to be.
Right. You cannot force high performance if the energy reservoir is completely empty. Performance is just the output. But immediately following performance is recovery.
Which, as we discussed, leads to the final stage, adaptation. Your body adapts to the demands you placed on it. It grows more resilient.
And then that leads back to better overall health, starting the whole cycle over again at a higher baseline, right?
Exactly. It's a continuous feedback loop.
Nutrition, movement, energy, performance, recovery, adaptation, it really is a literal engine. But what I found most striking in this section of the source material was the final stage of the biological performance engine. It's labeled Stage 9 Stewardship.
Stewardship represents a complete paradigm shift in why we even pursue health in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Most of the fitness industry is driven by vanity looking a certain way or fear, like avoiding a heart attack.
Yeah, totally. Fear and vanity sell.
But the operating system argues those motivations eventually burn out. They just don't last. Stewardship frames health as an act of profound gratitude.
Is asking, am I honoring this incredible biological interface that has been entrusted to me? Health becomes a responsibility, not just a hobby.
Right.
You maintain the hardware so that it has the capacity to support your learning, your relationships, and your broader purpose in the world.
So we have a biological foundation, the hardware is humming, the power supply is clean. But as you mentioned earlier, a fully optimized physical interface doesn't guarantee a successful life.
Unfortunately not.
Right. You can have the cardiovascular system of an Olympic athlete and still be completely miserable or paralyzed by anxiety or lashing out at your family.
Yeah.
We have to move from the biological foundation into the inner world. This is where the text introduces the emotional intelligence and resilience engine.
And here we find a crucial distinction that honestly clarified so much funny. The material explicitly separates mental health from emotional health.
Which is huge.
It is. We use those terms interchangeably all the time in everyday conversation, but they are different operating systems entirely. Mental health is about how we think. It's our cognitive clarity, our adaptability, our ability to process complex logic.
Right.
But emotional health is about how we feel and, more importantly, how we regulate those feelings.
The text highlights why lumping them together is so dangerous. You can possess brilliant mental clarity. I mean, you can logically map out a complex business strategy or perfectly articulate a philosophical argument while your emotional state is volatile, chaotic, and just completely unregulated.
Yeah, that's so true.
And conversely, you can be incredibly calm and emotionally steady, but your mental models might be built on flawed logic or toxic assumptions.
It's the classic example of, like, the brilliant surgeon who throws a scalpel across the operating room when they get frustrated.
Yes.
High mental capacity, zero emotional regulation.
Exactly. And to upgrade the emotional software, the framework posits a core tenet. Emotions are not enemies to be suppressed or conquered or medicated away. Emotions are data.
Data. They love that.
They are biological and psychological signals telling you something critical about your environment, your boundaries, or your unmet needs. Anger might be signaling that a boundary has just been crossed. Sadness might be signaling that something valuable has been lost.
Right.
The goal isn't to stop feeling those things. It is to accurately decode the signal and respond wisely.
Let me push back on this a bit, though, because reading through the text, there is a heavy emphasis on inner peace, alignment, and emotional balance. If I'm playing devil's advocate here, is this framework just advocating for toxic positivity?
I see where you're going.
Like, is the ultimate goal of the human operating system to just slap a smile on your face, never feel stress, and float through life in a detached Zen bubble where nothing ever bothers you?
That is a very common misinterpretation of well-being literature, for sure, but the source material explicitly rejects that idea. If we look closely at how it defines resilience, it states that mental and emotional well-being is not the absence of difficulty.
Okay.
It is the presence of healthy coping strategies in the face of immense difficulty. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text makes a brilliant mechanistic distinction between two types of stress.
Oh, the productive stress versus harmful stress concept. I love this part.
Yes. So productive stress, or eustress, is temporary growth-oriented pressure. Think about the stress of learning a really complex new software program, or competing in a championship game, or having a difficult but necessary conversation with a partner to save a marriage.
Right. It sucks in the moment.
It does.
Yeah.
That stress is highly uncomfortable, but it is deeply purposeful. It expands your capacity.
It goes right back to the physical metaphor, doesn't it? Lifting heavy weights is productive stress. The muscle actually needs the tension and the micro tears to signal growth. If you eliminate all stress, you just atrophy.
Exactly. But then you have harmful stress, or distress. This is persistent, unrelenting overload without adequate recovery.
Yeah.
It's working 80 hours a week for a toxic boss who constantly threatens your job security, while you are also, say, managing a chronic illness with zero support system.
That's a nightmare.
Harmful stress floods the biological interface with cortisol and adrenaline continuously until the system just breaks down. The goal of the emotional engine isn't to eliminate stress, because eliminating stress means eliminating growth.
Right.
The goal is to manage the demands, fiercely guard your boundaries, and ensure you have periods of deep emotional recovery.
And that mechanism of managing the demands brings us to what the text calls the emotional cycle. This is where the rubber really meets the road for anyone listening who struggles with reactivity. The cycle goes like this. An event happens. That event triggers a thought. The thought triggers an emotion. But then, right after emotion, there is this fascinating critical step, the text calls it, awareness, and then choice, and then response.
Yes.
It argues that in the tiny microscopic space between the emotion and the response, your power of choice exists.
That space is everything. I mean, it is the defining feature of human consciousness. When an event happens, let's say someone cuts you off in traffic, and you feel a surge of anger, autopilot dictates that your response is immediately laying on the horn and screaming.
Right, stimulus reaction.
Exactly, stimulus reaction. But if you can expand that gap of awareness, everything changes.
I look at it like the clutch in a manual transmission car. If you are driving and you just aggressively slam the gear shift from second to third without using the clutch, you are going to grind the gears and eventually destroy the entire engine.
Oh, definitely.
The gap of awareness is pressing the clutch. It temporarily disengages the engine from the wheels. It gives you a fraction of a second to smoothly shift into the right gear, the right response, before you re-engage.
That is an incredibly accurate way to visualize it. When you press that mental clutch, you notice the emotion. You name it. You say, I am experiencing anger right now because I felt my physical safety was threatened. You are decoding the signal.
Yeah.
And in that moment of disengagement, you suddenly have a choice. You can choose a response that aligns with your deeper values rather than just reacting impulsively based on a biological reflex.
So to you listening right now, how often are you driving without the clutch? How often does an emotion instantly dictate your action? Like an email comes in that frustrates you and you immediately fire back a passive-aggressive reply.
We all that.
Or you feel a pang of insecurity, so you instantly scroll social media to numb it. Developing that gap of awareness is what actually builds resilience. You aren't avoiding the stressful event, you are controlling the response.
And resilience, according to the text, isn't a genetic trait you were either born with or not. It is an architecture that is constructed through meaning, healthy habits, and crucially, relationships.
Relationships.
Yes, which seamlessly connects the internal operating system to the external world.
Right, because we don't live on a deserted island. You can have your biological engine perfectly tuned, you can have your emotional clutch working flawlessly, but eventually, you have to leave your house.
You do.
You have to go to work, you have to interact with your family, you have to deal with strangers, and inevitably your internal operating system is going to network with other humans. So how does this framework handle the collision of these different systems?
This is where the source introduces the human relationship engine.
Yeah.
And the paradigm shift in this section is profound. It redefines every single relationship as an encounter between two evolving awareness architectures.
Awareness architectures. Man, it makes human interaction sound so structural and deep.
Because it is. Think about what that phrasing implies. When you are interacting with someone, you are not just interacting with the words they are saying in that specific moment.
Right.
You are colliding with their entire history, their value system, their emotional coping mechanisms, their unhealed traumas, even the beliefs they inherited from their parents.
Let's ground this in a really gritty, everyday example. Let's say you have a married couple trying to buy a car. Partner A grew up in a household where money was incredibly scarce, debt was terrifying, and financial security was the absolute only thing that mattered.
Correct.
That is their foundational architecture regarding resources. But Partner B grew up in a household where money was viewed merely as a tool to acquire experiences, make memories, and enjoy life. Their architecture equates spending with freedom.
So they go to the dealership.
Exactly. When they sit down at the dealership, they aren't just arguing about the interest rate on a Honda. They are experiencing a violent collision of two entirely different architectural blueprints for survival and happiness.
And if they don't understand that, destructive conflict is inevitable. Partner A thinks Partner B is reckless and irresponsible. Partner B thinks Partner A is controlling and joyless.
Yeah, and it just spirals.
But the framework teaches us that understanding this architectural collision creates deep empathy. Instead of getting defensive and asking, why is this person being so difficult and irrational? You take a step back and ask, what architecture produced this behavior? What historical code is running in their operating system right now?
I actually have a personal example of this. For years, whenever my partner and I would get to a tense disagreement, instead of talking it out, I would just walk away and start aggressively doing the dishes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Washing pots and pans as loudly as possible. It drove my partner crazy. But when I actually looked at my first architecture, which is what the text calls our family of origin, I realized that's exactly what my dad did.
Interesting.
In my house growing up, you didn't resolve conflict, you just angrily cleaned the kitchen until the tension dissolved. I had literally inherited that buggy code and installed it into my own relationship.
The family, as the first architecture, is a cornerstone concept here. I mean, long before we had any cognitive ability to choose, our initial family environment shaped our baseline code for what love looks like, how to communicate, what constitutes safety, and how to handle disagreement.
It's all programmed so early.
It is, and that code runs in the background of every adult relationship, often completely unconsciously. The goal of the human operating system is to bring that background code into the light of awareness. You have to look at your first architecture and say, I appreciate the work ethic I got from this code, but I am going to intentionally rewrite this subroutine about conflict avoidance because it is crashing my marriage.
Here's where it gets really interesting, applying this directly to conflict. because the framework doesn't pretend conflict goes away. It says conflict is a normal, inevitable feature of network systems. But it differentiates between destructive conflict and constructive conflict.
The distinction lies entirely in the objective. Destructive conflict is driven by ego. The only question it asks is, who is right and who is wrong? It is about establishing dominance and proving the other person's architecture is flawed.
But constructive conflict asks a completely different question. What problem are we solving? I love this analogy from the text. It's like two software developers tasked with debugging a shared network that just went down.
Yes.
If they engage in destructive conflict, they stand across the room screaming at each other about whose code broke the server. But if they engage in constructive conflict, they pull up chairs side by side. They look at the screen together. The problem is the broken code, and they are a team trying to fix the connection. They attack the problem, not each other.
That level of constructive engagement requires immense trust. And the source notes that trust in this architecture is built agonizingly slowly. It is constructed through consistency, profound honesty, and keeping small commitments over time.
And it can be destroyed so fast.
It can be demolished in seconds by a lie or a betrayal. And while the framework notes that trust can often be rebuilt, it requires radical accountability.
Which points toward a massive, sobering concept that the text spends a lot of time on. Legacy, the idea that relationships actually outlive achievements.
It really forces a massive zoom out on the timeline of our lives. The text makes a sharp distinction between inherited legacy and intentional legacy.
Let's dig into that. Inherited versus intentional.
So inherited legacy is what we passively receive from our ancestors, our genetics, our cultural baseline, and yes, our generational trauma. Intentional legacy, on the other hand, is what we actively, consciously choose to pass down to the next generation.
Because families pass forward so much more than like DNA or trust funds. They pass forward emotional baselines, they pass forward prejudices, but they also pass forward resilience and hope.
Ultimately, the source makes a compelling argument that your greatest contribution to the world, your most lasting architectural feat, might not be the company you founded, the code you wrote, or the wealth you accumulated. It might simply be who you loved, who you encouraged, who learned to regulate their emotions because you modeled it for them. You are literally helping to code the operating systems of the next generation through your daily presence and your character.
It's a heavy responsibility, but deeply empowering when you think about it. So we've built the biological foundation, we've installed the emotional clutch, we've networked our systems through empathy and healthy conflict resolution. Now we are fully equipped to take all of these internal capacities and project them outward into the world.
Moving from internal to external.
Exactly. We move from internal growth to external contribution. And the text introduces this as the value and prosperity engine.
This section offers a radical reframing of how we view our professional and financial lives. It defines a career not merely as a job you endure to pay a mortgage, but as the organized expression of your abilities in service of others.
And it redefines wealth just as radically. It states that money is not purpose. Money is not the scoreboard of success. Money is simply stored value.
Stored value.
Yeah. It is a neutral tool that enables stewardship, freedom, opportunity, and generosity. True wealth, according to the human operating system, is multidimensional. It includes your physical health, your deep relationships, your intellectual knowledge, your control over your time, and your freedom of choice.
It's a much more holistic view of prosperity.
It is, but let me pause here and throw some serious reality at this framework. Let me give you some gritty pushback.
Okay, let's hear it.
It is really easy for a philosophical framework, or a deep dive like this for that matter, to sit in an ivory tower and proclaim, money isn't everything, and your career is an expression of service. But you and I, and the person listening right now, we operate in the real world.
We do.
Inflation is real, bills have to be paid. What about the single parent working a double shift at a job they absolutely despise just to keep the lights on and feed their kids? Does this operating system just write them off as unaligned or failing? Like, does it ignore the harsh reality of survival?
It is a critical question. And if the framework ignored that, it would just be toxic positivity for the privileged. But it actually tackles this head on.
Okay, how so?
The source does not shy away from financial realities. It places them in a practical hierarchy. It acknowledges that when you are in a season of pure survival, your primary objective is simply generating enough stored value to stabilize the foundation.
Right, oxygen mask on first.
Exactly. However, to move from survival to flourishing, it introduces a mechanism called the career alignment matrix.
Right, because we are constantly fed that cliche advice. Just follow your passion and the money will follow, which, let's be honest, is often terrible, mathematically flawed advice.
It really is. The matrix demands that you align 4 distinct dimensions to find true vocational alignment. The first is passion, what you naturally enjoy and are energized by. The second is skills, what you are genuinely objectively good at.
Okay, passion and skills.
Then the third is market needs, what problems people in the real world actually have and are willing to pay to solve. And the fourth is purpose, the broader contribution you want to make to society.
If you look at those dimensions, the failure states become really obvious. Like, if you only operate on passion and purpose, but you have no actual skills and there is no market need, you don't have a career. You have a very fulfilling, very unfunded hobby.
Conversely, if you have the skills and you are solving a highly lucrative market need, but you have absolutely no passion or purpose for the work, you will generate a lot of stored value, but you will eventually burn out. The emotional engine will just crash.
You'll be rich and miserable.
Exactly. The strongest, most sustainable opportunities exist in the center of that matrix, where all 4 dimensions reinforce one another. The framework insists that sustainable income follows value creation. You have to constantly ask, what problem am I solving? Who benefits from this? And how excellently am I solving it?
And that completely shifts how you view your paycheck. If money is just stored value, then your income is just a reflection of the value you've successfully delivered to the market. But the text doesn't stop at earning. It asks a really pointed question about what you actually do with that stored value once you have it.
This raises an important question, because storing value isn't the end goal. Managing it is. The framework organizes finances into 5 very practical stages: earn, save, invest, protect, give.
It's a clear roadmap.
It demands financial resilience, building emergency savings,
Yeah.
eliminating suffocating debt, not just so you can be rich, but because financial instability creates a systemic stress that cascades down and crashes the emotional and relational engines we just spent so much time building.
It's impossible to have constructive conflict with your spouse when you are terrified about making rent. The engines are deeply connected.
Deeply connected. And it poses a challenging question for those who do have resources. Are you managing your stored value out of a sense of stewardship, or are you just engaging in blind, ego-driven consumption?
Which brings us to the highest expression of the prosperity engine: generosity. The text makes the case that prosperity inherently creates responsibility. When wealth is viewed as a resource to be managed wisely rather than a high score to hoard, it finds its ultimate purpose in benefiting more than just yourself. Like, how can your success become service?
And when you reach that point, when you have secured your career, stabilized your finances, and your relationships are thriving, you cross a threshold. You aren't just reacting to the market anymore. You aren't just trying to survive the day. You have the bandwidth, the energy, and the resources to create entirely new realities.
And this is where the operating system unlocks the creative expression engine.
Yes. And we really need to demystify the word creativity here, because most of us hear that word and immediately think of a painter alone in a studio, or a musician writing a symphony.
Right. We think, well, I'm an accountant, or I manage a logistics team, I'm not creative.
But the source defines creativity much more broadly. It is the fundamental human ability to transform imagination into reality in ways that solve problems, improve lives, or create beauty.
It is the act of bringing something into existence that did not exist before. Whether you are designing a piece of software, structuring a new business model, organizing a community neighborhood watch, or, intentionally designing a family culture, you are engaged in the act of creation.
There is one sentence in this section that I think is the signature idea of the entire framework. It says, every human being is both the architect and the artwork of their own life.
Man, it's a stunning concept. You are the architect holding the blueprint, but you're also the building actively being constructed.
And the text is very realistic about the massive psychological barriers that stop us from building. It addresses the paralyzing fear of failure, the suffocating grip of perfectionism.
Oh, perfectionism.
Right, the endless cycle of comparison where we look at someone else's finished skyscraper while we are still digging our foundation, and we think, what's the point? Mine isn't good enough.
I deal with that constantly. I think anyone who tries to build anything does. The fear of putting something out into the world and being judged for it. But the operating system has a brutal, brilliant rule for this. Create first, refine later.
Create first, refine later.
It argues that courage must always precede confidence. You can't wait until you feel confident to start building, because confidence is only earned through the act of building.
Because creativity is inherently iterative. The text outlines a specific creative cycle. It starts with curiosity. You notice a problem or an interesting concept. That leads to imagination, where you visualize a solution.
Okay, curiosity, then imagination.
Then imagination generates concrete ideas. You take the best idea and turn it into a design. Then, and this is the hardest step for perfectionists, you build a prototype. Then you test it in the real world, you gather feedback, you improve it, and eventually through repetition you achieve mastery, which naturally sparks new curiosity.
Going back to the architect metaphor, I look at this literally like physical architecture. If you were hired to build a 50-story skyscraper, you would never just walk onto an empty lot with some steel and start winging it, expecting it to be perfect.
Of course not.
You draw a blueprint. You build a messy scale model out of cardboard. You run computer simulations to test wind resistance. You prototype. Yet for some reason, we expect our life projects, our careers, our marriages, the businesses we launch to be absolutely flawless on the very first draft.
It's so true.
The creative expression engine says, build the messy prototype. The first draft of your book is going to be bad. Your first month as a manager is going to be clunky. That is the point. Feedback is the mechanism of improvement.
And to endure that messy process of iteration, the driving force behind your creation must be authenticity.
Authenticity is key here.
It is. The text spends significant time distinguishing between two core motivations for creating. Are you expressing the truth of who you are becoming, or are you just producing what you think the world expects of you?
It asks a piercing diagnostic question. Am I creating from love, or am I merely seeking approval?
If you create purely for external approval, if you choose a career just for the prestige, or build a company just for the status, your work will always feel hollow. It is entirely reliant on an external validation loop that you cannot control.
Yeah.
But if you create from love, love for the craft itself, love for the specific people whose problem you're trying to solve, love for the truth you are trying to express, that authenticity sustains you through the messy prototype phase. That kind of creation becomes an act of stewardship. You are actively participating in shaping the world.
Which brings us to the zenith of the framework. We have the biological engine pumping energy, the emotional clutch regulating our responses, the relational engine fostering connection, the prosperity engine generating value, and the creative engine building new realities.
All cylinders firing.
All systems are firing. But a machine running at maximum efficiency still needs a destination. What is all of this for? The architecture must have a highest point, a true north. And this is where the text brings the entire system full circle, back to the very beginning. It introduces the spiritual alignment engine.
This is the ultimate integrating chapter of the human operating system. The text makes the argument that if the final goal was simply accumulating money, achieving career success, or maximizing productivity, the system would remain profoundly incomplete.
Just a really efficient hamster wheel.
Exactly. The ultimate purpose of developing every single part of ourselves, our bodies, our minds, our relationships, is to become increasingly aligned with truth, love, wisdom, and God.
And it makes a really important clarification here, because the word spirituality carries a lot of baggage for people. The text defines spirituality not merely as belief. It is not just having the correct intellectual answers to theological questions or, participating in a specific weekend ritual. It defines spirituality as alignment.
Alignment is an active state of being. It is the lifelong process of ensuring that your character, your actions, and your inner life are pointing toward those highest virtues.
Right.
The source stresses that spiritual maturity is not about escaping the messy reality of the world to go meditate on a mountaintop. It is about living within the messy reality more truthfully and more lovingly.
So what does this all mean? I found its definition of faith in this section really refreshing. For a lot of high achievers, faith feels like a requirement to turn off your critical thinking. But the text says faith is not the absence of questions.
No, not at all.
Faith is the choice to continue trusting, learning, and taking right action while you seek deeper understanding. Inquiry and faith can entirely coexist. You don't have to lobotomize your intellect to be spiritually aligned.
And it highlights a specific mechanism for cultivating this alignment: gratitude. We often treat gratitude as a polite social custom, like saying thank you when someone holds the door. But the framework treats it as a cognitive tool that literally changes your awareness.
How does it do that?
Well, the human brain is wired for negativity bias. It constantly scans the environment asking, what is missing? What is a threat? When you live in that default state, you live in a constant deficit.
But when you intentionally practice gratitude, you are actively shifting your reticular activating system to ask, what has already been given? What is good here?
Exactly. It alters your baseline reality. And the framework weaves humility and service deeply into this spiritual engine alongside gratitude. Humility is defined simply as an accurate understanding of your place within creation. It is neither self-degradation nor arrogance. It keeps you endlessly teachable.
And service is how all of this internal spiritual alignment becomes visible in the real world. Service is love in action.
Notice how love becomes both the culmination of the entire journey and the fuel for the next cycle. Spiritual maturity, in this framework, isn't some mystical, esoteric state. It is the practical integration of these virtues into everyday life.
Right, it's grounded.
It's how much patience you show your spouse when you're both exhausted. It's the integrity with which you manage your company's finances. It's how you mentor a struggling employee. Eventually, spirituality ceases to be a separate category of your life and simply becomes who you are.
Okay, we have reached the final stage. The master integration. We've built every single engine in the human operating system: the biological, the emotional, the relational, the financial, the creative, the spiritual.
We did it.
Now for the brutal reality check. If we try to run all 6 of these engines at maximum RPM simultaneously 24 hours a day, well, the entire machine is going to explode. The human body and mind cannot sustain maximum output across every dimension simultaneously.
Which is exactly why the framework concludes with the life harmony engine. The central principle of this final section is a massive sigh of relief for anyone who is burned out. Life is not about maximizing every dimension all the time. It is about harmonizing.
Harmony versus balance. The text is incredibly intentional about rejecting the word balance. When we hear work-life balance, we visualize a scale with perfect equality: 50% work, 50% life. Perfect allocation of time to health, career, and relationships every single day.
Which is impossible.
The text calls this a complete myth. If everything is equally important, then nothing is a priority.
To replace the myth of balance, it introduces the concept of seasons. Life does not move in a straight, linear line. It moves in seasons. There's a season for intense, immersive learning, like when you are in medical school. There is a season for aggressive building, like launching a startup. There is a season for parenthood, which requires a massive, immediate shift in priorities, where career might have to take a back seat. There were seasons for healing after a loss, and seasons for retirement. Wisdom, according to the Life Harmony engine, is simply recognizing the specific season you are currently in and allocating your attention accordingly without guilt.
But let me push on this, because acknowledging a season doesn't add more hours to the day. If I'm in a season of intense career building, I still only have 24 hours. If I dedicate 14 hours a day to the startup and I just accept that it's that season, don't I risk completely neglecting my health or my marriage until the whole system crashes anyway? Like, how do we actually manage the day-to-day chaos?
That is where the mechanisms of integration and boundaries come into play. Integration asks, how can one activity serve multiple engines simultaneously? Can your daily walk, which feeds the biological engine, also be your time for prayer and reflection, feeding the spiritual engine?
Oh, stacking them.
Right. Can a family dinner feeding the relational engine also be a time of deep learning and connection? You seek synergy to compound your time.
But you can't integrate everything.
No, which is why you must have ironclad boundaries. The text states that every yes to one thing requires many thoughtful, intentional no's to others. You have to fiercely protect your sleep, your deep work, and your family time. You're dropping balls, but you have to know which balls are plastic and which ones are glass.
I've heard that analogy. Work emails are often plastic. They bounce. Your health and your marriage are glass. If you drop them, they shatter.
Exactly. The text mentions a tool called the Wheel of Life as a diagnostic dashboard for this juggling act. You regularly rate your spiritual life, health, relationships, career, and so on a scale of 1 to 10. But the goal is not to achieve a perfect 10 in every category every single day. It's impossible.
It really is.
The goal is to ensure no single area is consistently neglected over a long period of time.
Course correction is a built-in feature of the system, not a sign of failure. If your relationships are operating at a 2 for an entire month because of a massive work deadline, you don't panic. You use the Life Harmony engine to intentionally steer your time and energy back toward your partner the following month, before the relationship engine breaks down entirely.
And sustaining this constant recalibration requires renewal. The text emphasizes daily rest, weekly reflection, monthly review, and yearly resets. Human beings are not algorithms. We are not machines. We require deliberate maintenance and renewal to prevent burnout and sustain lifelong flourishing.
This entire framework, from biology to spirituality, shows us that every small daily choice adds another brick to our life's architecture. The goal of upgrading your operating system isn't just to increase your economic output or become a more efficient worker bee, it's to live with greater health, harmony, purpose, and profound peace.
This has been an incredibly deep journey through this source material. It starts by forcing us to look at the reality of our biology and our emotions, and it culminates in a highly practical system for how to live a meaningful life. Remember the question we started with. You are not merely living a life, you are designing one.
Sign it.
Every interaction, every meal, every focused hour of work, every boundary you set, every time you press that emotional clutch, it is all architectural.
It is the intentional stewardship of the whole person. And when you understand how all these engines connect, the muddy waters of what constitutes a successful life finally start to clear.
They do.
So, building on those concepts of seasons and our first architectures, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you step back into your day. If you truly are both the architect and the artwork of your own life, what specific season are you currently designing for right now?
That's a great question.
And what outdated code, what old reactive pattern from your early family architecture might you need to intentionally rewrite today to achieve true harmony? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. See you next time.